Wednesday, 12:11 Central Time. Silver is ripping through $91. The 4% daily gain has just breached the psychological $90 barrier for the first time in weeks. Short sellers are staring at margin calls. Longs are smelling blood. And then the clock stops. 12:15. The CME confirms a halt in metals and options. Screens freeze. Orders hang. All-day orders and GTDs expiring today are canceled. The matching engine goes dark. And then, when the market reopens, 31,000 contracts trade in the aftermath. 31,000. That's 155 million ounces of paper silver changing hands in the wake of a system that just told you it needed to pause. Now, there are two ways to process what I just told you. You can decide what it means before examining the evidence, or you can walk through the evidence first and let the conclusion find you. I know which approach makes money. Let's do that one. Ken AG here. This is the forensic breakdown. 3 concentric rings. The halt itself. The institution nobody's talking about. And the deadline that makes all of it matter. Each ring changes the picture. And the third ring is the one that determines what happens to silver by Monday morning. Disclaimer. This is education, not investment advice. I don't know your position, your risk tolerance, or your time horizon. What I can give you is structure, mechanics, and data you can verify yourself. Ring 1. The halt. Let me be precise about the mechanics, because precision is how you avoid being manipulated by people who benefit from your confusion. A trading halt suspends the matching engine. No trades execute, no prices update. Orders accumulate like water behind a dam, and when the dam opens, accumulated pressure releases simultaneously. Academic literature on trading halts is consistent. Temporary spike in volatility, surge in volume, wider spreads, reduced depth. The reopening candle is chaotic not because something nefarious happened during the halt, but because unmatched orders from the freeze period collide in a compressed time window. 31,000 contracts trading after a halt is not normal, but 31,000 contracts trading after a halt that occurred while silver was breaking through $91, 48 hours before a delivery deadline in a market with depleted inventories is not random either. Context determines whether the volume was organic or engineered, and context requires the next 2 rings. Now, was this manipulation? I get asked this every time the CME has a technical event near a sensitive date. And my answer is always the same. I don't know, and neither do you. And neither does the person on Twitter who's certain it was. What I do know is this. The CME has had legitimate technical failures before. November 2025, data center cooling issue, documented by Reuters. These things happen. Complex systems break. And complex systems tend to break at the worst possible moments, because the worst possible moments are when the system is under the most stress. That's not conspiracy. That's engineering. Bridges don't collapse on calm days. They collapse during storms. What I also know is that a halt at 12:11, 4 minutes before the confirmed suspension, while silver is screaming through $91, creates an asymmetric outcome. Longs who were riding momentum get frozen. Shorts who were hemorrhaging get a breather. When the market reopens, the momentum is disrupted. The psychology shifts from attack to uncertainty. And in that window of uncertainty, 31,000 contracts change hands. I'm not going to tell you what that means. I'm going to tell you to remember those numbers, because Friday will provide the context that Wednesday couldn't. Ring 2. The institution. This is the part that nobody on Metals Twitter is connecting to the halt, and it might be the most important part of this entire story. Jane Street, the quantitative trading firm that most retail investors have never heard of. In Q4 2025, Jane Street added 20.6 million shares to the iShares Silver Trust SLV. That's not a routine allocation. That's a record position build in the largest silver ETF on the planet. Zero Hedge flagged it as potential financial engineering, and whether you trust Zero Hedge's framing or not, the data point is real, and it's in the 13F filing. Anyone can verify it. Now, why does this matter for the halt? Because SLV shares represent claims on physical silver held in trust. When a major institution builds a position of that size, it changes the dynamics of how much metal needs to be sourced, custodied, and allocated. The authorized participants who create and redeem SLV shares interact directly with the physical silver market. Large creation events pull metal into the trust. Large redemption events release metal back into the market. And both of those flows intersect with the same vault system that the COMEX uses for futures delivery. Jane Street isn't buying SLV because they think silver is pretty. They're a quantitative firm. They buy things because the math works. And the math that makes a record silver ETF position attractive to a firm like Jane Street is the same math that makes the COMEX delivery picture uncomfortable. Structural deficit, depleted inventory, rising physical premiums, backwardation. The institutional money is positioning for the same thesis that the vault data has been screaming for months. They're just doing it quietly, through an ETF wrapper, while the retail conversation is stuck on whether Wednesday's halt was manipulation. The sophisticated money doesn't argue about halts, it positions through them. And there's a secondary implication that the financial engineering skeptics are right to flag, even if the framing is hyperbolic. When a firm like Jane Street builds a massive ETF position and that ETF's custodian needs to source physical metal to back the shares, the sourcing happens in the same tight physical market where COMEX delivery and Shanghai arbitrage are already competing for ounces. It's another straw in the same glass. And the glass started the year 31% emptier than it was 12 months ago. Does this prove coordination between the halt and the ETF position? Absolutely not. Does it prove that the smart money sees the same supply math that the vault reports show? The 13F filing answers that for you. And that brings us to the ring that changes everything. Ring 3, the deadline. Tomorrow, Friday, February 27th, first notice day for the March 2026 silver contract. And here are the numbers that make Ring 1 and Ring 2 matter. Open interest for March represents 366 million ounces. Registered COMEX inventory, the metal actually available for delivery with warrants attached, has fallen 31% to approximately 102 million ounces. That's a ratio of 3.6 to 1. 366 million ounces of potential demand against 102 million ounces of deliverable supply. The gap is 264 million ounces, and that gap only exists because of the same assumption that always underpins the COMEX. Most longs will roll, most of them won't actually ask for the metal. Now layer in what's changed since the last delivery cycle. Chinese export controls implemented in January have intensified backwardation. Spot is trading above futures. That's the market saying, I need it now, not later. Shanghai silver is near $100 while COMEX says $87. The physical market is pricing silver $12 above the paper market, and every dollar of that premium is an incentive to pull metal out of Western vaults and ship it east. So here's the picture as of tonight. Registered inventory is down 31%. The east-west premium is running $12. Chinese export controls have restricted the flow of silver back into the global market. A major quantitative institution just built a record position in the largest silver ETF, and the COMEX matching engine halted during a breakout session 48 hours before longs must declare whether they want metal or paper. Each of these facts is verifiable. Each of these facts is public, and each of these facts individually is manageable. But convergence is what breaks systems, not single events. Convergence, now, tomorrow. Let me give you both scenarios because that's what we do here. Scenario 1, stress shows up. If an unusually high percentage of March longs stand for delivery, the CME has tools. Margin increases to force undercapitalized longs out. Conversion of eligible inventory into registered to pad the delivery pool. Extended delivery schedules to buy time. Cash settlement incentives to redirect demand from metal to money. We've seen every one of these tools deployed in recent months during volatile episodes. They work. They keep the system functional. But using those tools is not cost-free. Every margin hike that shakes out a long tells the remaining longs that the exchange is managing stress. Every eligible to registered conversion tells the market that the cushion was thinner than it appeared. And every cash settlement incentive tells a long who wanted metal that the system would prefer they take money instead. These tools preserve the system, but they erode the narrative that the system doesn't need preservation. The signals for this scenario show up first in spot premiums widening, the east-west spread expanding, and rapid registered inventory changes in tonight's and tomorrow's vault reports. If you see registered drop by 2 million ounces or more between now and Friday close, the arbitrage and delivery combination is draining the counter faster than metal can be replenished. Scenario 2. It clears without drama. Open interest collapses into first notice. Longs roll to May. Delivery volume stays within the comfortable range of registered inventory. Warrants transfer. Titles update. The media runs a 2-sentence story about March delivery proceeding normally. And half the internet says, see, it was all hype. But if that happens, ask the follow-up question nobody asks. At what cost? How much did margins increase to achieve that result? How much inventory was consumed? How much did the exchange have to actively manage the process versus letting it flow naturally? Because a delivery month that clears cleanly on its own is a healthy system. A delivery month that clears because the exchange deployed every tool in the kit is a system that survived. And survival, as I've said before, is not the same as health. And here's the part that applies regardless of which scenario plays out tomorrow. The halt on Wednesday, the Jane Street position, the 31% inventory decline, the Chinese export controls, the 6 consecutive years of structural deficit, none of these reset to zero on Saturday morning. Friday is a test, not a verdict. If the system passes, it passes with less inventory, less cushion, and the same structural pressures feeding into the next delivery cycle. The exam gets harder every time the student barely passes. So here's what to watch. Tonight's vault report. Is registered moving? The opening session tomorrow morning. How much open interest is still standing when the bell rings? Delivery notices in the first hours of Friday. Are they front-loaded, indicating genuine physical demand, or trickling in, indicating normal flow? And the east-west spread by Friday close. If Shanghai is still running a double-digit premium after Western delivery has been tested, the physical market is telling you the paper test was insufficient. Bank of America is already modeling prices above $100. Jane Street is already building record positions. Chinese export controls are already restricting supply. And 6 consecutive years of deficit have already depleted the buffer. The halt stopped the clock for 4 minutes on Wednesday. The data hasn't stopped for 6 years. Watch the data, not the clock. If this forensic breakdown helped you understand what happened Wednesday and what to watch tomorrow, hit the like button. One click, and it pushes this past the algorithm to reach people who need the framework, not the headline. Leave a comment. What's your read on Friday? Stress or clean pass? Show your reasoning. I'll engage with the sharpest analysis. Subscribe and hit the bell. Tomorrow I'll have the first notice day results with a full data breakdown. You need to be here. Share this with someone who saw the halt and made a decision based on emotion. Give them the 3 rings instead. As always, take care of yourself and each other. Thanks, your friend Ken AG.